One of the very, very special, outstanding Fabrenges in the Chofs was Shabbos Parshas Bolok, Shiva Oser B'Tammuz Nitche. That means that day was Shiva Oser B'Tammuz, but it was pushed off. The Taamuz, the fast day, was pushed off to the next day. Tovshin Chov Daled, which is 1964. Since it was Shiva Oser B'Tammuz, no one expected that there will be a Fabrengen. Bichlal, those years, Shabbos Fabrengens were only Shabbos Mevorchim or a special Yom de Pagre. But Stamazei, a Shabbos, certainly a Shabbos which is really a Shiva Oser B'Tammuz Shabbos, no one expected the Fabrengen. So many people, most of the people probably left to the country. Lepel Mamesh, the Rebbe, after davening, we realized that there'll be a Fabrengen, and the Rebbe came out to the Fabrengen at 1:30 like always. But this Fabrengen turned out to be a very, very special Fabrengen. In the beginning, the Rebbe spoke regular in Yonim like we'd speak a regular Fabrengen. But then, the Rebbe told over that in the time when the Frierdiker Rebbe was born, Tov Reish Mem, Yud Beis Taamuz, so that week, that year, Shiva Oser B'Tammuz, which was within the next few days after the Frierdiker Rebbe's birth, was also the Kviyas like that year, which is Shabbos. Shiva Oser B'Tammuz was Shabbos. And the Rebbe Marash, when he spoke, he said, quoted the Gemara, where the Gemara says that the Rebbe holds that in the year when Shiva Oser B'Tammuz comes out on Shabbos, since you can't fast on Shabbos, so it's pushed away. So it's pushed away completely, and you don't have to fast at all that year. So the Rebbe Marash used this lotion that that means, in other words, even though we don't paskin like that, we do fast on Sunday, but the whole idea is that since it pushed away, let it be pushed away completely. That means that we shouldn't have to fast anymore on Shiva Oser B'Tammuz at all, that Mashiach should come and we shouldn't have the tonus of Shiva Oser B'Tammuz. And then, the Rebbe, when he said this, he said in order for this to happen, we have to prepare. So therefore, on a day like Shabbos, Shiva Oser B'Tammuz, which is a nitche, we should be more besimcha through Yaina Mesameach Elekim V'Anoshim, which says in the Pasuk that wine makes happy the Eibishter and makes happy people. So therefore, people should drink more wine. And the Rebbe said that he's taking off the Gzeire. We know that there's a Gzeire that the Rebbe made that people under 40 are not allowed to drink more than 4 l'chaims. Chatchila, when the Rebbe made the Gzeire, he said you're not allowed to drink more than 3. Later on, he changed to 4, but at this point, Shiva Oser B'Tammuz Tov Shin Chov Daled, it was still 3. So the Rebbe said that he takes off the Gzeire of not being able to drink more than 3. So people were Tzei L'chaim. And then the Rebbe said that any bottle of mashke that's there should be emptied. And I think he used the lotion bottoms up. And when he looked around and he saw somebody holding a bottle, whether it was wine or mashke, that wasn't empty, he made with his hands and he showed, why is it not empty? You have to say l'chaim. The Rebbe himself said many times l'chaim, and the Rebbe specifically asked 3 people, a Kohen, a Levi, and a Yisrael, to say l'chaim. He asked the Kohen was Reb Chaim Gutnik, the Levi, I don't remember at the moment, I think somebody by the name of Levine, and the Yisrael was Reb Chanech Lichtenstein, told them to say l'chaim. But Bechlal, he turned around to everybody and they were singing a lot in the Gunim, and the Rebbe himself said a lot of l'chaim. It was a very, very freilich Fabrengen, unusual freilich Fabrengen. And the Rebbe felt like, so to speak, you could see close to the people. There was a small crowd, so the Rebbe could relate to everybody and made sure that people say a lot of l'chaim. I don't know from where some bottles of mashke became like this, how many bottles of mashke was there, but all of a sudden people started had bottles of mashke, maybe they had it hidden someplace in the lockers in 770, I don't know. And when the Rebbe saw somebody with a bottle of mashke, so he said, why is a bottle of mashke not empty? Say l'chaim. And the Rebbe said a lot of l'chaim and became very big lufen. Now when it came 6 o'clock, be'erich 6 o'clock, the Rebbe took out his siddur, opened the siddur to say a brocha achreina, which that itself means it was very long, because in those years, a regular Shabbos Fabrengen, which started 1:30, continued to 3:30, 4 o'clock, sometimes 4:30. But 6 o'clock should be a long Fabrengen till 6 o'clock. That was unusual. So the Rebbe opened the Siddur to say a brocha achreina. L'poel mamish, the Fabrengen lasted for another hour till 7 o'clock. That means the Rebbe did not close the Siddur, but he didn't make a brocha achreina. He started talking other inyonim. He spoke about things of Parsha Pinchas, even though this was Parsha Bolog. But in those years, the Seder was that at the end of the Shabbos Fabrengen, which whatever parsha it was, towards the end, the Rebbe would start off by saying that we're going by Mincha, we're going to read this and this next parsha, so you would say some word on the next parsha. So here also, he started speaking that since we're going to read Parshas Pinchas, so he spoke a whole arichas about Parshas Pinchas. The part that he spoke about was the inyanim of nachlas, of inheritance that talks about in Parshas Pinchas, where it says that inheritance goes over to a son. If you have a son, then the nachla goes over lebite, and he explained what's the inyan of a bas, a daughter, and a son, all these inyanim. And the Farbrengen continued till 7 o'clock. And by 7 o'clock, that's when the Rebbe made the bracha achrayna. But towards the end of the Farbrengen, the Rebbe said that even after he finishes Farbrengen, and then they daven mincha, etc., the Rebbe said that you still continue Farbrengen. Chassidim should continue Farbrengen. And he said, till when to continue Farbrengen? He said the Farbrengen should go on till Chatzos, till midnight. And he said why? Because the Alter Rebbe in his Siddur, by Sfira Sa'imer, the Alter Rebbe says that we know the din is that you can't count Sfira after Aleis HaShachar. You count at night, but when it gets in the morning, Aleis HaShachar, you can't count anymore. So the Alter Rebbe says that in the time of Sfira, B'Medina Selu, in the countries where he lived, or whatever the countries were at that time, where he was, Aleis HaShachar, at the time of Sfira, it means after Pesach, between Pesach and Shavuos, is Chsos Lailo. Midnight is when there's already Aleis HaShachar. And the Alter Rebbe says it goes on like that till Shivosar B'Tammuz. And the Alter Rebbe says there that therefore Shivosar B'Tammuz, when it comes Chatzos Lailo, you have to stop eating. That means by a tonus like Shivosar B'Tammuz, you're allowed to eat at night, but you can't eat from Aleis HaShachar. So since Aleis HaShachar in those places is by Chatzos, so by Chatzos you have to stop eating. So the Rebbe said that since the Alter Rebbe says by Chatzos you have to stop, so you should Farbrengen till Chatzos. And that's what people did. Like after Mincha, people continued Farbrengen, then was Ma'ariv, and people went to Farbrengen. Bochrim went and Farbrengen. I remember we went to Chazorah, because usually the Seder Chazorah was the Shabbos, since summertime, the Farbrengen was over like 4 o'clock, let's say. So right after the Farbrengen was Chazorah. Wintertime, when the short days, the Farbrengen finished close to the Shkia, or it wasn't enough time to Chazorah. Chazorah was at night. This time, the Chazorah was at night, because you couldn't have Chazorah right after Farbrengen, because Farbrengen finished so late. So Chazorah was at night. So some Bochrim, who usually would be by Chazorah, weren't there. Why? Because they went someplace to Farbrengen, because the Rebbe said to continue Farbrengen. Now remember, we were sitting by Chazorah, and when it came after Chatzos, a whole group of Bochrim came in singing Begiluf and Freilach, because they Farbrengen till Chatzos. And now when Chatzos was there, they couldn't continue, because the Rebbe said after Chatzos, he shouldn't continue Farbrengen. So they came to Chazorah, and they joined Chazorah. But all this was a hemshech to the Rebbe's Farbrengen, which was an outstanding Farbrengen, a Freilich Farbrengen, which we usually never saw that type of Farbrengen. And this is something that left a very big reishim on everybody. Now, I don't know, but negate this, that the Rebbe said that you have to start fasting Shivosar B'Tammuz from Chatzos. And he said to Farbrengen Chatzos, I don't know if it means that nowadays in our countries, the Torah starts then. The Rebbe maybe just used this as a nekudah from where to how far to go. So I don't know, L'gab Aloch of Sfira Seimer, that's something else. But L'gab the Farbrengen, the Rebbe said to Farbrengen till Chatzos, and that's what we did. But this Farbrengen left such a reishim, and anybody who wasn't there, and after Shabbos heard what kind of Farbrengen it was, felt so bad, because this is something that you can't make up. See, other Farbrengen, skip a Farbrengen, and every time you missed a Farbrengen, it was a bad thing. But still, this Farbrengen to miss was something that was outstanding, and therefore they felt so bad. And, in Yiddish there's a saying, was kleiner der Elam als größer the Simcha. The smaller the crowd, the bigger the Simcha. Here, I don't know if it fits to this is just a vertel, but Lepeil, it was like that. A small crowd, and the Simcha, and the Rebbe that was there was Mamish Meredik, that it was like an inyan of pushing away the Torah. Since it's a nitche, the Rebbe made sure that there should be no inyan of atzvas, no inyan of sadness, but should be only simcha. And this, the Rebbe said, would bring that heil v'nitche yitche, since it was pushed away, it should be pushed away completely. Mashiach should come, and we shouldn't have to fast anymore on Shivosar B'Tammuz.